All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Julie Hardesty. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a metadata analyst at Indiana University. I've also been a participant in the Samvera community for a while now. So I wanted to kind of come in today and talk about how your support makes a difference and what it looks like to contribute to open source in Samvera at this point. I also want to share that I am speaking to you today from the ancestral homelands of the Miami, Delaware, Potawatomi, and Shawnee people. This is the land on which Indiana University Bloomington sits, and these nations were forcibly removed from this land to make room for towns and counties and the seminary that became Indiana University. These nations still exist today, but their people are no longer located here. Continuing to recognize and name the harm inflicted on the Miami, Delaware, Potawatomi, and Shawnee people continues to center efforts to bring equity and justice to them. This support, no matter how small, does make a difference. Together with others continuing to state these truths and amplify the needs of those still living, we can grow more support and we can make a difference. For the Samvera community, I would like to answer the question, whose support makes a difference, in the form of a Venn diagram. And you may not be surprised to see that this Venn diagram is a series of overlapping circles because everyone's support makes a difference. If you're new to participating in the Samvera community, if you are familiar with participating in the Samvera community, if you're a developer, if you're an end user, there are ways that everyone can contribute and support the open source work that's happening here. So just to get into how this is working, I'm going to go over real briefly what some of the major Samvera software projects are that are happening in the community right now. So Hyrax is a Ruby on Rails engine for creating a digital repository application. Hyku is the software that allows you to run multiple Hyrax applications as a service. So it's a multi-tenant Hyrax application. Avalon Media System is what I refer to as a senior system for digital audio and video collection management. It's a project that's been part of Samvera for quite a while. And then there are also many core components, and these are various Ruby gems that are used by Hyrax, Hyku, Avalon, as well as other community-based applications that folks in the Samvera community are working on. So can I just try to use any of this right now without doing anything else? The answer is yes. There are demonstration sites. There are 3 demonstration sites for Hyrax. So dev.newrax is running the Hyrax, the latest release, most recent release of Hyrax, which is at this point Hyrax 4.0 release candidate 2, which just came out a couple of days ago. pg.newrax is running Hyrax with a backend that is not Fedora 4. Right now, that is a Postgres backend, and it is not it's not the most recent release. It is Hyrax 4.0 release candidate 1 at this point, I think. And dev.newrax is running Hyrax with a Fedora 4 backend. And then stable.newrax is another flavor of Hyrax, which is the most recent stable release, which right now is at Hyrax 3.5. So those are all available you can create an account and try uploading. You can look at the dashboard. You can see how loading content works in those, how metadata is working, different features that are available, and how searching and discovery is working. Avalon, likewise, also has a demonstration site. It's demo.avalonmediasystem.org, and that is running Avalon 7.6 right now. And likewise, that is also a system that you can go and try out, create an account, log in, and try uploading content and try features available with Avalon. So should you try running any of this locally? Yes, you should. So if you want to, this is going to talk you through trying things out with Hyrax. So this is basically my kind of use case to walk through what it looks like to do to try something out locally. So for trying out Hyrax, you do need Docker, and Docker is available in a variety of ways to install on a variety of systems, and need a release or download of code from the GitHub Samvera organization. And for this one, for using Hyrax, it would be the Hyrax repository. If you're developing, you can do the checkout of a working copy of the repository and have that all set up with GitHub. But if you're just wanting to try things out locally and have a Hyrax-based application running, you don't actually need to go through all of that. So also handy is being connected on Slack. The Samvera Slack is a great place to ask questions or talk to people about any issues you might be encountering. And I also recommend snacks and a beverage, but I think I would always recommend snacks and a beverage. So, all right. So for running Hyrax, the Docker side of things, I'll just kind of talk through what the setup looks like for me. I have a MacBook Pro 2018, and it's an Intel chip, not an ARM. And I'm using the Docker desktop app. I have that installed. And so within that Docker desktop app, I am actually doing some adjustments in the settings for resources, just to make sure I've got enough space available for installing the app and being able to load up content and have it be indexable, that sort of thing. I've had Docker in place for a while on my machine. So I've also gone and cleaned up old images and volumes. So, getting rid of things that aren't being used in Docker, and that frees up some space as well. For the code side of things with Hyrax, I tend to head over to the releases in Hyrax. There are various ways you can do this. You can go to the main branch and get at the code that's the latest that's there in the main branch for the Hyrax repository. But I actually go over to the releases, and I went ahead and gave it a try with Hyrax version release 4, release candidate 2 for version 4, and I've given that's what I'm going to be talking about here, giving that a try. And that is the most recent release, but the most recent release is not necessarily the same as the stable release. So the stable release, if you remember, is 3.5 right now for Hyrax. So there can be a difference, but it's worth it to try out whichever way you want to go. The most recent releases or a stable release, or what's currently in the main branch if you want the most up to date. So anyway, you can get that as a zip file, the code from GitHub, and you can unzip that somewhere that you have somewhere locally where you have admin access. And then from there, I don't use the Docker the desktop application. I actually go into the terminal at that point and go into that directory that I just unzipped. And to build the application, that's the first step, is just using Docker compose build, and that is going to be building the default application that comes with this code when you download it. There's an internal test app that is set up, and it will build an application that will run locally using Fedora 4 as the backend. So this is running Hyrax with a Fedora 4 backend. And doing this build with the Docker compose build command goes through 33 steps, and it took about 20 minutes last night for that to build. And it built successfully. I didn't have any problems, but that is one reason for the snacks and a beverage. So, but Slack is also available if builds fail. There are various reasons why things may not work trying to build the Hyrax application, but for the most part, anytime that I have encountered someone trying to build the Hyrax application using Docker, since we've had that in place, we've figured out how to make it work. So it seems to actually be something that can work pretty reliably for just about any setup that we've encountered so far. So that's been pretty neat to see. All right, so the next step after the build, after that completes, is to actually start the Hyrax engine so that your Hyrax-based application is running. And so starting the engine, if you've got the Docker desktop application, there's an interface that allows you to start and stop and do those sorts of actions. But I just do this in the terminal as well, and that's the Docker compose up command. And that will, in the terminal, you'll see all sorts of steps running, and you can actually see this in the desktop application as well, but you'll see all sorts of steps running for starting up all of the things that are used for generating and starting a Hyrax-based application. And what I tend to watch for is getting to this DB migrate step. And when it says that it's exited with code 0, that's when I know that more than likely I've got a running application that I can go visit. So then you can head over to your browser to localhost port 3000, and that will show you the Hyrax application running with Fedora 4 in a backend using Active Fedora. And that internal test app that is running that is what's called DASI. And there's actually a hidden folder or not a hidden folder, but it's a folder in the GitHub repository that you've downloaded that is that's .dasi that has this code in it. Within the terminal, you can use Control-C to shut down the application if you don't want it to run anymore. And the Docker desktop application, if you're using that, has controls for that as well. So when it's running in the browser, you'll see generic looking Hyrax application, and you'll see up in the top left that it is Hyrax that's running, and down in the lower left for what I have installed with the release, I've got indication that it's version 4.0 release candidate 2. So you can kind of see, depending on what it is that you're running, you'll see those indicators locally when you're running these internal test applications. So, that is great, but now what? I've got this thing running locally, or I know that these demonstration sites exist and I can go try things online. I can look at these, I can look at Hyrax that way. And that is cool and all, but have I really done anything that's like open source yet? And I would say, yes, this is supporting open source, giving these things a try, and especially if you share what your experience has been. So trying the demonstration sites and reporting issues or reporting successes. That is helpful information to let the community know what is working and what is not. And trying things likewise, if you try any of this locally, if you try to build a Hyrax application and run that locally and report issues or successes with that, that also helps the community know more about how well the software is working. And ways to do that are a few. Posting on Slack is probably one of the best ways, especially if you encounter an issue that you're trying to figure out immediately. Posting on Slack to talk about what you're experiencing is probably one of the best ways to get started. So for Hyrax, there are actually some specific channels. There's Hyrax WG, which is the Hyrax Maintenance Working Group. There's a Hyrax interest group channel, and there's a Hyrax Valkyrie channel if you're trying the Valkyrized version of Hyrax, which is not what I was talking about, but is also available to try. And there tend to be specific channels like this for the different development efforts for those different software projects that I listed before, and we'll get back to that. In addition, and in the GitHub repository for whatever the software project is that you're working with, there's going to be an issues list, and you can take a look at the issues that are being reported there and what problems have already been reported or are being worked on. Likewise, some of the projects have some of the software efforts have project boards in GitHub, and those are ways to organize issues for specific development efforts that might be occurring for that project. So if you do encounter an issue and you've got something that's broken or something that needs to be worked on, you can report an issue. Anyone can do this. So you can report an issue, creating that for Hyrax. We have an issue template that you can follow. And I really appreciated Yimtran's presentation yesterday about issue templates, because I think we've got some information here and we've got some good prompts, but I think we can improve it. So, but we do ask for when a new issue is created to give some description and explain what your expected behavior is, what actually is happening, what you're experiencing, and then the most important part is the steps to reproduce the behavior. So listing out what you need to do in the Hyrax application to make whatever the issue is occur, and that helps when people are trying to figure out how to provide a fix. So that is something that you can do. The issue list, if you want to take a look at that and see what has been reported for Hyrax, everything is listed in GitHub all together with these issues. We also try to use labels to kind of group things together, the types of issues. So you'll see a couple there have a bug label on them. To differentiate them from other issues in the list. So you can take a look through there at the labels that are being used and the different sorts of things that are being worked on. And there's also the possibility of taking a look at an issue and trying it out yourself and seeing what happens. So testing an issue and adding a comment on the issue is a super helpful way to contribute. So in Hyrax, since we do have those prompts in the template where we ask for the steps to reproduce the behavior, you can look for that. And if there are steps listed, you should be able to follow those steps and try them either on one of the demo sites that is running Hyrax, or locally. If you've got a build that you're running locally, you can give these issues a try that way as well. And adding comments about anything that you try here related to one of these issues is helpful. So if you can make the issue happen when you're testing, that helps to verify that we've got something that needs to be worked on, especially if it's an issue that's been sitting for a while. If you can't reproduce the issue, that is also helpful, because that indicates to us that maybe we've got an issue that's been worked on and figured out, but we just didn't get the issue updated in GitHub. So that is a very helpful way to contribute. There's also possibilities of reviewing pull requests. So pull requests are sitting next to the issues there in GitHub for the in the repository, and these are code changes that people have proposed and are offering up as possibilities to merge back into the code base for whatever the software project is. In this case, it would be for Hyrax. And one of the things that is always, I think, always required for any pull request is a review of some kind. And so if there is a pull request here that is dealing with something that you're interested in, or you think is a priority to be worked on, it is actually pretty helpful just to provide that review to say, this is important to me, this is important to the community to do something about. Even if you can't verify that the code itself is the change that needs to be merged in, it's still helpful to kind of give that a boost, give a pull request a boost, and kind of let folks know that something is there that might need to be worked on and brought back into the code base. So essentially, if you want to work on something, you can totally work on something, and it can be a small something. So it's possible. But wait, there's more. All right, this is the infomercial part. So back to the Samvera projects that we have. It's not just Hyrax. There's Hyrax exists, and it has its Slack channels. There's a Hyrax interest group that meets monthly. But in addition to that, Avalon Media System, Avalon has a Slack channel that you can get in touch. There's an Avalon user roundtable that meets monthly. Hyku has a Slack channel as well for discussion, and there's an interest group for Hyku that meets monthly. And there's a whole variety of core components and more. This is actually listing out the other GitHub repositories that exist in the Samvera organization. So a lot of these are considered core components, but there's a whole variety of things there. And there are various things that are being worked on with those in varying degrees. So there is a component maintenance Slack channel that is available for component discussion, but I think probably any sort of discussion that people want to have is welcome there. And there's an interest group that is also having meetings regarding component maintenance. And for Avalon Media System, taking a look at what they have available on GitHub, there is actually, there's Docker installation instructions. So Avalon is another system that can be tried locally if you want. So there's instructions provided for that. And there are a list of GitHub issues, and you can see what sorts of things are being worked on there with Avalon. Hyku, similarly, it's a little bit different, but there are Docker Dory install instructions. So trying to set things up with Hyku is kind of running a service with multiple Hyrax applications running. So it's a slightly different sort of thing, but it is something that looks like you can try. You can try that locally as well. And there's also a GitHub issue list there, so you can see what sorts of things are being worked on within Hyku. And then as an example of a core component, this is the IIIF manifest repository, and installations for these they're generally gems that you can add into applications. So it's slightly different. You're not necessarily dealing with Docker, but the issue list still exists, and you can see what sorts of things are being worked on, are available for review there. So in bringing this to a close, there are upcoming events. So you can do this, you can try things on your own, but these are also chances for you to meet up with others in the community and give things a try with other people. So the Samvera Developer Congress is happening May 22nd to 26th, and that's going to be a week of folks gathering together and looking at topics and working on things together that way. The Valkyrized Hyrax community effort is in place to get Hyrax on Valkyrie to the next level with I think sprints that are going to be happening at near the end of the summer. The Samvera Technology Maintenance Hours Pledge Drive is always in place for people to any of this contribution work that you're doing can be added and can be counted as pledged hours to Samvera. Interest groups and working groups, as I said, are out there and available for regular meeting times. And the Samvera Tech Call happens every Wednesday at noon. So if you're encountering issues, trying something, and having questions about anything, that Samvera Tech Call is always available for you. So this is essentially the point here is just this layers of effort. So little things that we do over time add up and make open source work. And so all of us are able to do this, and it's not something that requires a ton of time or a ton of effort. And it is something that can happen regardless of what your participation familiarity is in the Samvera community. If you're new to participating, if you're familiar with participating, if you're a developer, if you're an end user, it all helps to make Samvera work as an open source community, as an open source project. So thank you. There's the Developer Congress sign up. I'm going to put that link in Slack if it isn't there already. That's my contact information, but also the Samvera Community Manager, Heather Greer-Klein, is super helpful to get in touch with for any questions that you have about any of this. So I think it was a little bit long there. Sorry. Here you go.
Thank you so much, Julie, for this great presentation on how to get started with Samvera and also how to get involved. It was really great. There is active chat and questions in Slack, as well as some questions in the Q&A, and we have about 3 minutes. So I'm going to address the Q&A questions first, or forward them to you, and then we'll see what we can convey about the Slack discussion in the time we have left. So in the Q&A, Hyrax 2 no longer builds, so patches cannot be merged. Are there ways to get patches in so we don't have to use a branch forever? And they are referring to CI.
Oh, for the automated tests? That is not necessarily a question I'm going to be able to answer. For 2.0, yeah, so there's a branch that has patches available that's working, but it's not something that's getting merged back in. Is that what's going on?
It's saying Hyrax, yes, 2x stable can't get merged is what they just responded.
Okay. I think that would be something to bring up with the Hyrax maintenance working group and check on that, because since 4.0 isn't actually out as a full-on release yet, depending on what the 2.x changes, there might be some wiggle room there to get something added in, but I can't say for sure. So the product owner and tech lead for Hyrax would be in a better position to determine that, I think.
And Daniel Pierce just made a comment in the Connect channel in Slack, so you can see more information about Circle CI config needs for the 2x. Also, I might convey this one question that had a lot of discussion after it in Slack to you, just get your perspective on it, which is, do most or all people use Docker to run Hyrax locally now? And are those instructions available somewhere standard? If not, will the video, yes, the video, this will be available. But do you have any other thoughts about people using Docker to run Hyrax locally, and if those instructions are available? Julie?
I kind of missed a little bit of that question that you asked. Sorry, I was trying to see if is it in the Q&A?
This is in Slack.
Oh, this is in Slack. Okay.
And so I'll repeat it for you since we have about a minute left here. Do most or all people use Docker to run Hyrax locally now? And are those instructions available somewhere standard? Chris Colvard responded with containers markdown file in GitHub, but I wonder if you have any other information about that, Julie.
Yeah, I don't know if most people are running. I think that's the easiest way to try and get Hyrax running locally is using the Docker instructions, and those are part of the READMEs that we have in the Hyrax GitHub repository. So that containers.md has the instructions for trying that out. So that gives you the instructions for doing what I explained, running Hyrax with Fedora 4 backend locally. And there are also instructions for running the Valkyrized version of Hyrax, which will start up with Postgres backend instead of Fedora 4. And those are both part of what you can get with the Hyrax GitHub code that's available right now.